going to start our portraits here of BB-8 with a nice big circle. I would say probably the size of like an orange or a baseball is a good size to aim for. And you want to place this, I would say, a little bit lower on your paper here, just so that we have lots of space above our circle to build in his head shape. A good trick for circles too is if you lock your wrist and use the natural rotation of your whole entire shoulder, that'll give you some nice round movements for some nice round shapes. But even then, it does not have to be perfect. You can see I'm using a bunch of these messy, sketchy circles to kind of build up that shape. And eventually, I will pick my favorite line to work with. Now that we've got a nice big circle on our paper here, a lot of messy, sketchy circles, we are going to start to add in some guidelines, which will really help with the placement of some of the features for BB-8 here. Now BB-8, obviously, he is kind of like a little head that's like balanced on this ball. He can kind of roll all around. So we don't want it to look like he's standing completely still. We can add a little bit of movement to our drawing by maybe implying that he is kind of rolling forward here. So instead of cutting my circle in half, like completely straight down the middle, I'm still cutting it in half, but it's kind of tilting off to the side a little bit. So it's more of a diagonal line, kind of splitting it right down the circle, but it is a diagonal line here. Here we go. Once we have our circle cut in half here, we want to add in one more guideline that is going to be right about through the middle of our circle, but it's going to add in a little bit of a bend to it. So this is just how we show that BB-8 is not flat, right? Even though we're drawing him from a 2D perspective, he is still a round character. This lower half of his body is very spherical. So we're showing that he is nice and round. To build up the silhouette for him, the top half, his head, basically you can think of this as like a little rainbow arch that's sitting right on top of our circle here. So I like to start building in just this big rainbow, this big hill shape that is balancing right on top, and you want that center guideline that you added in to cut right about halfway through this little rainbow arch that we are adding in. Very lightly sketch in that nice arch for his head shape. So his head does get a little bit like skinnier in the area where it's like touching the rest of his body down here. So I'm going to add in another rainbow curve right above the edge of my circle. And then on either end of my rainbow curve here, I'm going to pull in some diagonal lines. And that'll really be the lines that I want to lock in there. And his head, and actually his body as well, will go ahead and be the first things that we want to lock into place. If you've never drawn with us here before, when we say locking it in, it really just is a fancy way of saying that we're going back into our drawing, picking our favorite lines and making them a little bit darker so that they really stand out above all of the sketchy lines that we've started with. Although this is actually the only place in the entire Disney Resort where you are encouraged to be a little bit sketchy. True, yeah. Once we've got the shape for his head all locked in place, at this point it kind of looks like you have a little ping pong ball, wearing a hat maybe, but we're not going to change anything about the shape of his body. Like we said, he's very round, he basically just rolls around on his very spherical body. So I can go back in there and lock this into place as well, just picking out my favorite line from my original circle, locking that in nice and dark all the way around from top to bottom. As we're starting to lock in some of our lines here, though, I want to talk a little bit more about really just Star Wars in general. Like I mentioned, I'm a big Star Wars nerd, so I could literally talk all day. But one of my favorite things about Star Wars actually is the cameos. Especially in the newer trilogy, where BB-8 here comes from, we got a lot of really, really interesting cameos. One of my favorites is that the very renowned composer, John Williams, he actually has a cameo. He is in The Rise of Skywalker. If you don't know John Williams, he of course has scored the music for many, many Star Wars movies, and they wanted him to have a little bit of a cameo. So he actually plays a bartender who we just see for like literally half of a second in The Rise of Skywalker. And in that scene, not only does he get to cameo in it, but they also added a lot of really cool details to the background of that scene. They have a bunch of stuff that is in the background of this cantina area that he is bartending in that represents a bunch of the movies that he has scored. So they have things to represent movies like Saving Private Ryan, E.T., Home Alone, to really kind of give a big nod to his incredible history of soundtracks that he has scored for his very, very numerous movies that he has done an amazing job creating just a beautiful soundtrack for. Now that we've got this nice big circle locked into place for BB-8's body here, we want to start to go back and add some of the detail. If you recall, his body is kind of covered with all of these different orange details, these different plates and things. So we want to start to build those in. I'm going to start with a nice big circle, right about, I would say, further up towards the kind of top left edge of our circle. Go even bigger with this. It doesn't sit right in the middle. This is, again, kind of a way that we can show that maybe he is rolling around a little bit. So I'm going to add in a nice big circle here. Again, kind of just pushed up towards that top left edge. I want to go ahead and lock that in, as well as on the inside of this first circle that we're seeing kind of here towards the middle. There's going to be a few more details on the inside. BB-8 really is just composed of a lot of different details. One of my favorite things about Star Wars, though, has always been the design of like all of the different droids. I just feel like there's so many really cool, unique droids all throughout Star Wars. And I really love that that has even carried over into the things that are like not the Star Wars movies, like not the main trilogies. We even got like the little BB droids that we've seen in the video games, and even over at Galaxy's Edge they had some for a while that was super, super cool. So again, I'm just like nerding out about Star Wars all day long, so I apologize, I'm just talking about robots at this point. Now that we have our big circle, one Star Wars fan out there, yes! Now that we have our big circle right in the middle here, we do want to add in a few more smaller circles on the inside. This first one is going to sit pretty close to the outer edge of our first circle that we added in here. So I'll add that into place, lock that in as well, and there's going to be one more smaller circle on the inside. I was not joking around when I said BB-8 is literally just a bunch of circles. But I would say once we have these little rings in place in the middle, probably that is the hardest part out of the way, and it's also right about the halfway mark of our drawing. So I want to do a quick check-in with everybody out there. How are we doing so far? How are we feeling? All right, we got one woo. Everybody else is like, what the heck did I just walk into? We're like drawing robots, we're talking about robots. Well, if it doesn't look like him just yet, don't be too panicked. We still have a lot of details to add in. For the details on this inner ring for BB-8, I'm going to add in a little diagonal line right through this middle circle. And then on the outer circle, I'm going to add in all of these little like rainbows. I'll even kind of color in the inside of them. Just placing them directly across from each other on this outer ring of our circle here. I'll add in a few more diagonal lines to this middle ring here, just kind of two over on the side here in between my little rainbows. And if yours is not looking exactly like mine, do not panic. It really does not have to. BB-8, he's always rolling around, he's always kind of changing, so maybe he is just like at a different angle. We're seeing some of those different details. It could look a little bit different than mine. That is totally fine. I'm going to start to add in a few more of these little round panels all over him. Right down at the bottom, we're just going to see a part of one. I'm adding in a little rainbow. I'll darken that in, and then I want to add in two more rainbows underneath that as well, just getting slightly smaller as I am making my way down. And again, I'll add in another one of those rainbows here and there, and shade that in, maybe even add in a few little lines. Again, there is no right or wrong way to do this detail. We are definitely simplifying it. So if you looked at a picture of BB-8 compared to your drawing, he might look a little bit different, but if we were trying to draw in like every single bolt of BB-8, we'd be here forever and ever. I'm going to add in one more of those panels to the right-hand side just by adding in these two big letter C curves. And then I want to add in a little bit of the separation between these panels as well. So you can actually just pick your favorite lines from the guidelines that we started with and just darken in your favorite portions of those guidelines in between those little circles that we added in there. Your vertical line and your horizontal guideline as well. To finish off the detail for BB-8's body, we want to add in just a few of those little bolts that are kind of holding him together. So again, no right or wrong way to do this. You can add in however many or few you feel fit into your drawing. I just kind of like to tuck them into the corners in a few different places. And now we want to start to make our way up and add in his little face here. His face is very simple. He basically has like one little camera for an eye. So I'll go ahead and add in one circle right in the middle here. And then to make him look even a little bit cuter, before I shade in this circle for his camera, I'm going to add in one more teeny tiny circle right up at the edge just to give him a bit of a highlight. And I'll shade that in as well. I'm going to add in a little bit more detail to his face here though, mostly just adding in another little circle right next to him for this light. And I'll add in one more rainbow right along the bottom here as well. Now I did mention cameos, of course. Not only did we have cameos in The Rise of Skywalker, but even from the very beginning in The Force Awakens. One of the funniest cameos to me was that Daniel Craig actually played a stormtrooper in The Force Awakens. I feel like that's one that a lot of people kind of know about, but maybe not. Because he actually went around, people started asking him, like, are you in Star Wars, are you not? And he was like, no way, why would I ever do that? And then the movie came out, and he was like, yeah, that was me, I did that. I just think it's funny that he like tried so hard to keep it a secret, and then he was like super excited to be able to tell everybody about it. To finish off our drawing of BB-8 here though, we're just gonna add in a few more details to his head here. He has these little rectangles, one from the left-hand side here towards the bottom, and then two more little rectangles at the top. I'm kind of just following along with the curve of his, like shape of his head here, that little dome on top. And I also want to show that we're seeing a little bit of the underside of his head shape here. So I'll even add in a few of these little lines, just kind of adding in those diagonal lines to show this is pulling inward. And if you're feeling a little fancy, totally optional, totally extra credit, you can even shade in the underside of his head here, just to show that it is a little bit in the shadow. And to finish off our BB-8 here, we do want to add in his little antenna. He has a little antenna right on top of his head. You can actually just use your favorite line from this original guideline that we started with. Darken in your favorite line, and then he has like a little light right on top there, just adding in a little rectangle, and one more antenna right next to it. Anything else that you want to add in to your drawing of BB-8 is going to be extra credit and up to you. You could add in, he basically has like a little lighter that sometimes he sticks out to do like a thumbs up, which I think is the cutest thing ever. You could add some porgs in there. I love porgs. They're like my favorite thing ever. I love talking about porgs because they were also actually based off of the puffins that lived in the location in that the movies, the trilogy was filmed in, which was really cool. They had like an island that was overrun by puffins, and they were like, these are so cute, we should make them into Star Wars creatures. But I'm just rambling about Star Wars again, so make sure when it's all said and done that you find somewhere to sign your drawing, nice and big and proud, because you've all just completed your very own portraits of the one, the only, one of the sassiest robots, I have to say, in the Star Wars cinematic universe. It is BB-8. With that, I want to know, everybody, how did we do? All right, we got some blue, we got some gray, we got some people that are stunned into silence by how amazing their drawings came out. I'm literally choking because I'm so excited. All right, we'll find somewhere to sign your drawing, nice and proud, and then I would love to see how all these portraits came out.